Trust not a woman when she weeps, for it is her nature to weep when she wants her will. Whoa, that's really a little bit of toxic masculinity from Socrates going around the table. Do you agree with this? You disagree?
Honestly, I need to read the quote again.
I'll get the TTSs in just a sec, guys. I apologize for the delay.
Trust not a woman when she weeps, for it is her nature to weep.
When she wants her will.
Yeah, I mean, I do see a lot of like philosophy, ideas, and I do believe in a lot of them. So like when I see this, I see it as like a possibility to like be true, especially just like knowing, like me being a woman, I could definitely find myself like, doing something for like attention.
And then just go around
well, Brian didn't even give you the good one. You see, one of the students of Socrates, Plato, and then from Plato to Aristotle. Aristotle said, "Wherefore women are more compassionate and more ready to weep, more jealous and quarrelsome, more fond of railing and more contentious. The female is also more subject to depression of spirits and despair than the male. She's also shameless and false, more readily deceived, and more mindful of injury, more watchful, more idle, and on the whole less excitable than the male. On the contrary, the male is more ready to help, and as it has been said, more brave than the female, and even in the Malatia, if the sepia is struck with the trident, the male comes to help the female, but the female makes her escape if the male is struck." So, just saying, the philosophers of old did not seem to have, well, I mean, they had a high opinion of women, I guess, but they seem to understand the nature pretty well, didn't they?
I just think that overall, like, obviously these philosophers, like, they're all male, but the one that you referenced, I like that he mentioned that women are more compassionate, because generally women are more compassionate than men, so we tend to feel a lot more.
He's not saying that is a good thing.
Yeah.
You understand? He's not saying that. He's saying that you're a slave to passion. Like,
he's saying that we're a slave to passion.
Like we have like no emotional agility. Like we can't control our emotions.
Like compassion in and of itself. He's making a reference here. Wherefore women are more compassionate and more ready to weep, more jealous, more quarrelsome. Right? He's saying actually that they're a slave to their passion. In this case, that their compassion is often misplaced because it's a part of their nature. Right?
I think that's
what he's saying.
You do see that comment a lot towards girls, like, oh, you're being too emotional right now, or like, oh, you can't control your emotions, and that's not usually towards guys. I do see that a lot more. I literally said it to my sister last night because she was crying, but it's like she cried because she didn't know how to express herself. So I don't know, some women, they feel helpless, that they actually can't do anything, and so their only other alternative is to cry. And I guess it kind of does play into Socrates, where he's like, oh, women cry to like get their way, and I can see that as well. I think that it's like they don't see any other action that they could take in that moment than to just cry, and it's just like a way for them to relieve like stress or built up tension within. And also women, I think that we feel like it's a lot easier to cry. I have not seen that many guys cry in my life, and it's like an Asian saying, like guys only cry 3 times in their life. It's like when they're born, when their dad dies, and when, I don't know, their grandma, mom, I forgot. The saying, right? Yeah. It's
Can I ask, like, would you guys feel as if
that is most definitely not the saying.
Isn't that the saying?
I'll let you know, that is most definitely not the saying.
Yeah, it's a saying. No, she knows it. It's in Korean.
Yeah, Korean thing.
It's a Korean thing.
But that's not the 3 times they cry, though.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I think I did it wrong. It was like when they're born, when someone dies, and then I forgot the last one. When they went to the military. I think it was that one.
I think guys mostly view crying as a sort of manipulative thing, or I guess most guys, because I can say all guys, as a manipulative thing of girls to do to just get their way. But I think most girls are emotional, don't really know how to control their emotions, or they're just super emotional and just end up crying because they're hurt, not necessarily for wanting to like get their way or wanting to like manipulate their way in their situation. Because it's
I have to kind of give you a firm disagreement here. So I think women don't have much in the way of recourse except 2 ways: vicious slander or through manipulation. And here's why I think this. So men always have an option women don't, which is force. women don't even really have a force option against other women, right? It's not really something they do. Now, it has become more prominent now that women fight or are willing to go fisticuffs with each other, but it's still not nearly as common as it is with men. And on top of that, they can't do that with men. So what they do instead is their kind of ways of fighting back are either through emotional machinations or through the idea of slander, right? Those are kind of the two pathways that they have, because what else do they have? So if Bob is giving me a bunch of trouble, I can punch Bob in the mouth, and that's totally socially acceptable. I can't punch Linda in the mouth. That's totally not socially acceptable. On the other hand, if Linda punches me in the mouth, that's laughable, right? It's just like, okay, well, what did you accomplish here? Perhaps you hurt your hand, right? So the thing is like, they don't really have much but two options. And so I think that's, I do think it's a form of manipulation. Now, you could argue that manipulation is necessary because that's what's at their disposal, but I do think it's manipulation for sure.
I think it's the only defense mechanism that women really have besides what you just said, like going on a smear campaign. Just like a skunk gets scared and sprays, or a porcupine gets scared and puts their spikes up, women's only real defense mechanism is crying. Like, that's all they can do.
I wouldn't agree with that, because I would say we could, as women, kind of put in the work and control our emotions and maybe come from a place with logic and conversation, and not just cry. And I get it. Like,
but a man who's decided to break up with you, that guy that like that video, that's how this conversation all started. That video of that girl crying. Besides her smear campaign and her tears, there's nothing that she can do to that guy.
she could leave, and then
He left her. That's why she made the video, and she was upset. He gave her
To Tier One's point, I don't think she's wrong. I think that women are capable of logical discourse and reason and everything else. I don't think they're incapable of this at all. I just think that ultimately, what backs it with men, if men have like a logical dispute or a reasoned dispute or something like this, we ultimately have something that we can defer to, force doctrine.
Yes.
Okay, we both think we're right. So one of us can always just beat the shit out of the other, right? So we can decide it that way. We have a threshold breaker.
Completely.
That doesn't exist. That doesn't exist for women.
I also think a lot of times,
it just like simply isn't there. So Chair One, like, what do you do to get revenge, right? I know what men do to get revenge. Oftentimes, like, if I ever see that guy again, I'm going to punch him right in the mouth, and then they do it, right? They actually do it. Women don't really have that available to them, so what they do is they run slander campaigns or emotional manipulation. Like, what other choices available to them?
they could
not to get revenge at all.
Take
and to not
accountability.
utilize that
I agree
energy.
with that. I'm just saying that if they were to want to, for whatever reason, that would be the option available to them.
Yeah.
Or there's the option of walking away, evolving, becoming the absolute best version of yourself. I mean, they might never care, but there is, like, if there was all these issues in the relationship and you step away from a relationship or from whatever the dispute is, and you fix it and you work on yourself and you become a better person, at some point, I do believe in the theory that, like, they always come back. I mean, and it might not always be a good thing, and they might not always come back in the capacity that you want them back in, but women do possess the ability to
Well, let's try it this way. Okay, just quick show of hands. Do you think that women plot and scheme more than men do, by a show of hands?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Women are scheming.
We rather do that. A lot of women rather do that.
Definitely women plot and scheme more than men do. So let me ask you this. Think about this from a man's perspective. Women often don't think of it from our perspective, but universally from theirs. And why wouldn't they, right? They're not men, they're women. So they're going to think of things from their perspective. It's hard to actually put yourself in the other seat. But when women say, like, men are emotionally closed off, they're emotionally closed off, they don't want to talk, they don't want to talk about their feelings, they don't want to talk about things like this. Did you guys ever think that because if they do, it actually gives you ammunition? So if they tell you their deepest, darkest fears, or they tell you, or they become vulnerable with you about anything which is emotional, since they know that you scheme and plot as a way to either defend yourself or hurt other people, whereas they would just, like, punch them in the mouth, right? By them actually being vulnerable to you, that lays open the trap for your scheming and plotting. So in many ways, wouldn't that be a great defense mechanism? Like, wouldn't you actually give men advice? Don't tell women very much, because they scheme and plot and will do bad things to you with the information if they get upset, right? Like, that makes sense from a man's perspective.
Well, yeah, because like society makes it to where if a man cries, immediately he's weak. Immediately he, is like less of a man because he can't control his emotions. And then naturally, like, because I have done this like years ago to my first relationship where he was vulnerable with me, and I do remember mentioning to him, like, when I was crying, I was like, well, when you cried, I was there for you, so that's like that I was kind of like using his vulnerability as a way for him to like be there for me. And
Right.
like,
So it was a bit of plotting and scheming
Yeah.
and manipulation, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So this is the case, right? It's like, so in many ways, probably the best advice to give men is to not open up to women. Right?
Just open up to the
Because if
right
they
one- the right
like,
one.
if you do, and so, but wait, it gets worse. It gets worse. What if it's the case that the reason women are always complaining that men don't open up and aren't vulnerable to them is because what they really mean is, this fucking guy isn't giving me ammunition to hurt him with.
in some cases, I would agree that probably, maybe most cases, I have no idea actually, but I feel like
When you think about it, from the man's mind, he's like, wait a second, now that we know they scheme and plot more, and they're going to use what I say as emotional ammunition, and they get upset if I don't emotionally become vulnerable for them. If you put that together in the man's logical brain, doesn't he think to himself, wait a second, this chick just wants me to be emotionally vulnerable and give her my darkest secrets so that she can hurt me with them if she wants to? Because what other recourse does she have?
yeah, I would say that means you just got to get to know the person that you're investing yourself with, to like understand their mindset and where they would come from or how they would treat you, and trust that they wouldn't do that to you.
Michael Joe